Hey guys, so this is a walkthrough of morphemic analysis, just like we did in class. So first, we are going to do the problem that we did in class, just in case you guys missed class that day, or in case you guys forget. And then we're going to do a more difficult problem that will be harder than the problems that you will do for your homework, but will be helpful to help you guys do your assignments. So remember, first, when we want to do morphemic analysis, we get a set of data, and the first thing we want to do is look for recurring forms in the data that we get and look for recurring meanings. Every time we see that form match with that meaning, that suggests that that morpheme has that meaning. And then afterward, we will have questions that will help us state the patterns for forming meanings. So we might derive new words, or we might need to explicitly state the rule. So we're going to do both of those here today. So first, let's get started with the Michoacan Aztec problem that we did. Now, I don't know Michoacan Aztec, you don't know Michoacan Aztec, but by doing morphemic analysis, we can figure out how to form meaning in this language. So first thing we need to do is we need to look for recurring meanings and recurring forms. So here I have the recurring meanings listed for you guys, and now you want to look for the forms that recur every time we see those meanings. So I see no kali, meaning my house. Looking for houses again. See no kali mes. Your house. I see mo kali, so it's a little bit different, but I see that form repeat again. And his house, I kali. So I see that form, and let's highlight that there. So kali, 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 kali. And every time I see that morpheme, I see the form for the meaning house, right? So that leads me to believe, unless I see something else in the data later, that house is probably kali. And now we will do that for all the rest of these morphemes, and we will get something that we will see in a little bit. Okay, so I have gone and I have identified all of the different recurring morphemes for these roots and these words just by doing that same process. Every time I saw the meaning dog, I also saw the morpheme pelo right there. And every time I saw the meaning cornfield, I also saw the morpheme quamili. I didn't see any changes in that. Sometimes we might see some changes in other data, but in this data, it's pretty straightforward. Now I need to look for the other recurring morphemes for the pronouns and for the plural, right? So I see the plural, the first person plural, the first person pronoun. So my, and my. And look, just again, I see the same one there. No, 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 no. So that leads me to suggest I don't have any other data that contradicts this. So it leads me to suggest that no is a prefix that is added to the front to make the possessive meaning my. Now I'm going to do that for all of the rest. Okay, and so I did that for all of the possessive pronouns here in Michoacan Aztec. Every time I saw the meaning for your, and it's just in mocali, mopelo, mopelomes, and moquamili, I also see that other morpheme recur, mo. So that looks like mo is the second person possessive pronoun in Michoacan Aztec. And then for his, every time I see the meaning his house, his cornfield, I see that pronoun I. So nice and simple. It looks like no is the first person, mo is the second person, and I is the third person. Now, the last one I have to do is I need to look for the plural. So I see your dogs, my houses. Those are the only two pieces of data that I appear to have in for the plural. So I look at these, right? And I'm going to do this as a bright green right there. Your dogs, your houses. And do I see any morphemes recur with this meaning? And I do, nice and simple. Kali mes, mo pelo mes. So it looks like I add a suffix, mes, to make the plural in Michoacan Aztec. So now I need to derive some new words. How would you say his dog? Well, dog is the root that I have, and his is the prefix e. So it looks like in Michoacan Aztec, the way I say his dog is y pelo. So now how would I say my cornfields? Again, take the root, and then I take the prefix, and then I take the plural. And it looks like I say no quamili mes to mean my cornfields in Michoacan Aztec, based on my analysis. So one other thing I might have to do is I might need to state the rule for forming plurals. And that would go something like this. I say, simply, we don't have a rule notation like we do in phonological analysis. So we say something like add a suffix, mes, to make the plural in Michoacan pearl, plural in Michoacan Aztec. What is the rule for possessive pronouns? So we add the prefix, add a prefix to form the possessive in Michoacan Aztec. No creates the first person. Mo creates the second person. And E creates the third person. Now, to be precise, it's the first person possessive, second person possessive. But we will talk more about these kinds of syntactic classes when we get into syntax next week. Okay, so that was Michoacan Aztec. We have found the patterns and for the plurals and possessive pronouns for these different nouns. That one was pretty easy. Let's look at another problem here with some nouns from the Philippine language, Cebuano. Now, it looks like I had a typo there because I'm a little bit tired right now, just like you guys might be. So let's do that same process here. We want to look for recurring morphemes with recurring meanings. So one thing to remember before we get started, what makes this problem a little bit trickier than the ones that you will do is that we didn't have time to cover allomorphs because of COVID-19. So I'll just briefly explain it now, even though I don't think any of your problems have this, but it might come up in a later class. So we did phonology, and we learned that allophones are different forms of a phoneme that appear in a certain environment. Allomorphs are different forms of a morpheme that appear because of phonological rules. One great example is English plural. We have es, z, and the s sound right there. And those are two different forms of the same morpheme that appear after one will appear after a s sound and one will not. More on that another time. But we might see some different allomorphs here in this problem, although you will not see any on the ones for your homework. So that's why that one will see a little bit more difficult. But for the rest, it's pretty much the same. We're first looking for recurring forms, And then after that, we're looking for recurring meanings. So I see these forms here, Cebuano, meaning a Cebuano or a person from Cebu, Ilocano, an Ilocano or a person from Ilocan, Tagalog is a Tagalog person, English is an English person, Bisaya is a Bisaya person or a Bisayan. So, and then I look for those same ones. Now, it would be helpful if I could match them up here, but in the data set, I did not get them nicely and neatly matched. So maybe I want to do that. So I might, actually, no, I don't want to do that because that might take extra time. So, so I look here, right? I see Cebuano, a person from Cebu, and then I look at the form for the language, Sinibuano, right? So the Cebuan language, I see one change there, and that appears to be this morpheme ni. Let's see if I see that in anywhere else for the same data. I see English, in English, right? So it looks like I see that ni there also. The Visayan language in Visaya. So Bisaya, Binisaya. Okay, cool, nice and simple. And then I see Ilocano, Inilocano. And then I see Tagalog, Tinagalog. Okay, so this looks like this might be, instead of a totally different morpheme, this looks like it might be two different allomorphs that appear, two different alternations, ni and na. Might be two different forms of that same morpheme. So I go in and look, and I see here what is the exact rule for deriving language names from ethnic group names. Well, it looks like I insert ni somewhere after that first vowel sound. So for this one, so after that first syllable, so B, T, C. But here it looks like E by itself is always its own syllable, at least based on my data. So let's state that rule, that pattern that I see. Insert ni or na after the first syllable of the ethnic group name in Cebuano. What type of affixation is this? Well, you guys will remember we learned about a couple of kinds of affixes, prefixes, suffixes, and I gave you guys that one example of an infix in English. This looks like an infix. It goes inside of a word. So this is infixation. You will see this, you will see an infix in one of your problems, so it's good to know that. Okay, so now I have some words here that match with these. I have Swede, meaning a Swede, and Italo, meaning an Italian. So now I need to think, what would these words be? Well, it looks like this would be Suniweed, would mean the Swedish language. If I want to add that there. And then Italo means Italian. So it looks like I want to add ni there right after the first syllable there. In that to mean the Italian language. Nice and simple. So then last, right, I have a couple more data. I get some more data that might change my theory here. So I have Finuranzo means the French language, and Innu Nagari means the Hungarian language. So I look after that first syllable, just like I did before, and I see fi and e, but I see a different form of that morpheme here. So it looks like this here, nu, is another possible alternation of this morpheme here. So ni, na, nu, all forms of the same, just like us and z or s are the same morpheme in English. So what would Finuranzo mean for the French language? A French person would probably be Ferranzo, French person. And then I take the word for the Hungarian language. I have Inu Nagari, meaning the Hungarian language. I take out that infix, Inagari, and that would be Hungarian person. So that is morphemic analysis. I have been able to derive, to create new words and state rules about these languages just by looking at patterns in the morphemes. So I've been able to figure out insert ni, na, or nu. We need to change our rule, right, if we find more data. So we said here, insert ni, na, or nu after the first syllable of an ethnic group name in Cebuano to make the language name. And that's morphemic analysis. So you guys have an assignment this week that will be just like this. It will be some of them you won't have to deal with allomorphs, but you might see some infixes there. Kind of fun, a little bit more easy, I think, than phonemic analysis. So enjoy the assignment, and it will be due next week. See ya.